He entered the room without urgency, without noise, without effort. No one announced him, no one turned immediately, and yet, within seconds, conversations began to bend slightly at first, then completely. A laugh was delayed. A sentence was shortened. Eye contact shifted direction. Nothing explicit happened. No commands were given, no dominance was declared. But something invisible moved through the room like a pressure change, and everyone adjusted to it. If you were standing there, you wouldn't notice the exact moment you lost control of the interaction. You would only feel the result, your words carrying less weight, your presence becoming negotiable. This is not confidence. This is not charisma. This is a system. And once you see it, every social interaction stops being random and starts looking engineered. He doesn't speak first. That's the first detail you notice about him, not because it's obvious, but because everything else seems to orbit around that silence. He stands still, shoulders relaxed, gaze steady but not aggressive. When someone talks to him, he listens just long enough to make them slightly uncomfortable. Then he responds, briefly, precisely. This is the first silent weapon, control of initiation. When you enter his detection cone, his zone of attention, you feel it immediately. If you rush to fill the silence, you've already given him control. If you wait too long, the pressure builds and you still lose. Scenario 1. You speak quickly, you over-explain, you try to prove value. Result: your status drops. You signal uncertainty. He becomes the filter through which your words must pass. Scenario 2. You hold silence. You let the moment stretch. Result: the dynamic stabilizes. Now both of you are negotiating from equal ground. This is not new. Variations of this behavior appear in high-level interrogations, elite negotiations, even courtroom strategy. Silence is not absence, it is leverage. The second silent weapon activates next, control of reaction. You make a joke, the group laughs, he doesn't, at least not immediately. His reaction arrives half a second late. That delay does something subtle but powerful. It reframes the moment. The group subconsciously checks his response to calibrate their own. If he approves, the laugh continues. If he doesn't, it dies faster than it should. Your emotional output is now dependent on his timing. The third silent weapon is the most dangerous, control of attention. He decides what matters without saying it. A slight turn of the head, a shift in posture, his focus moves, and the room follows. If he looks at you while you speak, you gain temporary importance. If he looks away, you shrink instantly. No argument, no explanation, just a shift in attention and your status recalibrates. Verdict: whoever controls initiation, reaction, and attention controls the perceived hierarchy without speaking. Now place this mechanic inside a group, a small team, 5 people, 1 project, no official leader at least, not on paper. At first, everything appears equal. Everyone contributes. Everyone speaks. But over time, patterns begin to form. The initiator, always the first to speak, to suggest, to fill silence. The reactor responds quickly, laughs early, agrees fast. The observer speaks less, reacts slower, chooses moments carefully. The observer begins to accumulate invisible authority. Not because they demand it, but because the group starts orbiting their behavior. When the observer delays a response, discussions stretch. When they shift attention, others follow. Hierarchy is not assigned, it is replicated. Then comes the destabilization point. A new member enters the group, confident, fast-speaking, high energy. They disrupt the rhythm, interrupting, initiating constantly, forcing reactions. At first, the group tilts toward them. Energy feels like leadership, movement feels like control. But then a moment happens. The observer does nothing. No interruption, no resistance, just absence of reaction. The new member pushes harder, talks more, tries to dominate, and suddenly it breaks. The group feels the imbalance. The over-initiation becomes noise. The lack of calibration becomes visible. And in that moment, the group realigns not around volume, but around control. The observer regains position. Risk 1, over-initiation exposes insecurity. Risk 2, overreaction signals dependence. Turning point 1, silence under pressure. Turning point 2, controlled attention shift at peak tension. At the exact moment the group feels unstable, one behavior determines the outcome. Follow this channel if you want to see how these patterns repeat across every level of human interaction. Because what you're seeing here is not personality, it's structure. And structure always scales. Now multiply this by 600,000. If one person controlling initiation, reaction, and attention can shape a room, what happens when an institution does it to a population? Entire systems are built on these same silent weapons. Media controls initiation. What topics appear first, what narratives begin. Public figures control reaction, how events are framed emotionally when outrage rises or falls. Platforms control attention, what you see, what you ignore, what disappears. This is not theory, it is observable at scale. Consider any major shift in public opinion. It rarely starts with facts, it starts with focus. A topic appears, repeated, amplified. Reactions are timed, anger, fear, validation. Attention is directed towards some details, away from others. Within weeks, perception changes. Within months, behavior follows. A single data point. In controlled environments, altering the order and timing of information exposure can shift group decisions by over 40%, not by changing facts, but by controlling sequence and reaction timing. This is the same system you saw in the room, just scaled. And here's the part most people miss. The system does not need to control everyone. It only needs to control the individuals who control attention. Because once those individuals shift, the rest follow automatically. Zoom back in, one person, one interaction, one moment where you decide when to speak, how to react, and where to look. That's where the system begins. And that's where it can be reversed. What happens when both sides understand the system? Now the game changes. Silence meets silence. Delayed reaction meets delayed reaction. Attention becomes contested territory. This is where most people fail, because the obvious strategies stop working. If both individuals refuse to initiate, tension builds exponentially. Someone must break. But the one who breaks first loses. So the counter mechanic emerges, controlled disruption. Instead of waiting, you initiate, but unpredictably. Not to fill silence, but to redirect it. Instead of reacting late, you react selectively, choosing which signals to amplify and which to ignore. Instead of following attention, you fracture it, forcing multiple focal points. This has been used in high-level negotiations, political strategy, even military deception. The goal is not to dominate the system. The goal is to make the system unstable for your opponent, because once they lose control of initiation, reaction, or attention, even briefly, the hierarchy resets. Most people never reach this level because it requires awareness under pressure, not theory, execution. And execution fails the moment emotion takes over. Treat this like a cheat code, but only if you apply it precisely. Rule 1. Delay your first response by half a second. This alone shifts perception. It signals evaluation instead of reaction. People begin to adjust to your timing. Rule 2. Speak in completions, not continuations. Finish your thought. Stop. Do not fill space unnecessarily. Silence after clarity increases perceived weight. Rule 3. Control your gaze deliberately. When someone speaks, give full attention or none. Half attention signals low control. Sharp focus signals authority. Rule 4. React selectively. Not everything deserves a response. The fewer signals you amplify, the more powerful each one becomes. Rule 5. Initiate only with purpose. If you speak to fill silence, you lose. If you speak to redirect focus, you gain. Rule 6. Observe before entering. Every group has a rhythm. Entering without reading it immediately lowers your position. Red alert individual trap. Overusing silence turns into passivity. If you never initiate, you disappear instead of dominate. Red alert group trap. Trying to control everyone's attention directly creates resistance. Control the key nodes, not the entire network. Don't miss the next simulation because this is only one layer of the system. You've seen the structure. At the individual level, control, initiation, reaction, attention. At the group level, hierarchy emerges from behavioral patterns. not titles. At the systemic level, the same mechanics scale into institutions and populations. At the counter level, disruption reshapes control. All of it reduces to a single principle. Power flows toward the one who controls when things begin, how they are interpreted, and where attention goes next. Every interaction you enter is already following this rule, whether you see it or not. The only question is, in the next room you walk into, are you part of the system or the one quietly rewriting it?